The auction of desperation. The marketplace was loud, hot, dusty, filled with aliens from many worlds. Voices shouted, lights blinked, and strange smells filled the air. But at the center of it all was a small metal stage, and on that stage stood a woman, tall, thin, with glowing blue skin. Her eyes were tired, her clothes were torn. In her arms she held a tiny alien baby wrapped in an old blanket. A hologram above her head flashed red letters. For sale, will serve, just feed my child. She was shaking, but she stood straight, proud somehow, even in pain. The baby in her arms was quiet, too weak to cry. Her name was Salri. She had once been a scientist on her home planet. But now she was just a mother, with nothing left. Her planet had been destroyed, her people scattered, and she had no food, no money, no future. She had one thing left to trade: herself. The auctioneer, a fat alien with mechanical arms, banged a rusted hammer. 100 credits for the female and the child's service, he barked. Who'll take her? Clean, still young. She can cook, clean, obey, voices murmured. Some laughed cruelly. Others stared with cold, greedy eyes. No one offered a bid. She wasn't a warrior or pleasure slave, just a tired mother, and no one wanted her baby. She looked down at her daughter and whispered, "Stay with me, just a little longer, please." Then a new voice spoke. It was deep, calm, human. "I'll take her." The crowd turned. A man stood at the edge of the ring, tall, broad shoulders, dusty coat, rifle on his back. A human. His face was partly hidden under a hood, but his jaw was tight, and his voice carried quiet strength. The auctioneer blinked. "You human? You want this one? She's weak, useless." "I said I'll take her." He tossed a bag onto the platform. It hit with a loud clunk. Credits, a lot of them. The auctioneer didn't argue. Sold. The chain around Salri's ankle unlocked with a hiss. She stared at the man, unsure what to do. He didn't look at her. He just turned and walked away. "Follow," he said. Salri clutched her baby tighter and stepped off the stage, her legs trembling. Every eye followed her, some with pity, some with disgust. She lowered her head and followed the stranger through the dirt and noise. They walked far. Past food stalls, past alien guards, past tents made of bones and plastic, until they reached the edge of the city, where silence returned. A transport pod waited, old but clean. The man opened the door. "Get in." She hesitated. Are you going to separate me from my child?" He looked at her for the first time. His eyes were not angry, not cruel, just tired. "No." That was all he said. The journey was quiet. Her baby slept in her lap. The man drove without a word. She kept glancing at him. He hadn't chained her. He hadn't touched her. He hadn't asked anything from her. It made her more afraid. What kind of man buys a woman and then does nothing? They stopped after hours of travel. In the middle of nowhere, a small shelter built into the rocks, solar panels, a broken windmill, a water tank. He opened the door, let her walk in first. Inside, it was small but safe. A bed, a fire, a kitchen unit, a room with blankets on the floor. "This is yours," he said. She turned. "Mine?" He nodded. "You'll be safe here. Food's in the cabinet. Water's filtered. Baby can sleep in there." He pointed to the second room. She stared. What do you want me to do?" He looked confused, then shrugged. "Rest, heal, feed your child." "That's it?" He nodded again. "You're not property. You're people." Tears rose in her eyes, but she held them back. Then he turned to, "Leave, wait," she said. Her voice cracked. "What's your name?" He paused at the door. "Call me Jaren." Then he walked into the night. Salri sat down slowly. Her knees hit the floor. Her baby stirred in her arms, letting out a small, weak cry. She finally let herself cry too. But this time, the tears weren't just from fear. They were from something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The quiet man. The next morning, Celery woke with a start. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. No chains, no loud alien voices, no dusty auction floor. Just silence. Her baby still slept beside her, warmer than she'd been in days. A soft light came through the old metal window. Something smelled like bread. She stood slowly. Her muscles still ached, but her body wasn't shaking anymore. She wrapped her daughter gently in a scarf and stepped out of the room. There he was, the human, Jaren. He sat near the fire, cleaning a weapon. Not in a threatening way, more like someone doing something out of habit. His coat was off now. He wore an old shirt with a tear on the sleeve and faded patches on the shoulder. Military maybe, but not recent. His eyes flicked up as she entered. "You slept," he said quietly. She nodded. "Yes. Thank you." He didn't respond. On the table sat a plate, a small loaf of bread, 2 boiled root fruits, and a jug of clean water. "For you," he said, "and the child." Celery hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" He looked at the fire for a long time, then finally said, "Because someone didn't help when they should have, and I live with that." She didn't understand what he meant, but his voice held weight, regret, and something else. Pain. She sat, ate slowly. Her daughter woke and reached for the food with weak, trembling hands. The baby smiled, a small, tired smile, and Celery's heart almost broke all over again. "I thought you bought me," she said after a while softly. "I did," Jaren replied. "Then why not treat me like a slave?" His jaw tightened. "Because I don't believe in owning people. I just didn't want someone worse to get you." She looked at him, studied his face. There were scars, small ones, across his cheek and neck. One eye was slightly darker than the other. Not just a soldier, a survivor. Later that day, she stepped outside the shelter. The desert stretched endlessly around them, golden rocks, silent wind, and a strange beauty she hadn't noticed before. Jaren was repairing a solar panel on the roof. "I can help," she said. He glanced down. "You should rest." "I rested enough." He climbed down, handed her a wrench. "Then hold this." She did. And for the first time in weeks, she felt useful. That night, after the baby fell asleep, she sat by the fire while Jaren cooked something over it. Meat cubes in a thick paste. "You're not like other humans," she said. "You haven't." "Met many. I've met enough. Most look at me like I'm an animal, but you look at me like a person?" She nodded. He stirred the food. "My daughter used to have eyes like yours. Big, bright, curious." "You had a child?" He paused, then nodded. "Her name was Lyra. She died during the last raid on Earth Outpost Theta." "I'm sorry." He didn't speak for a while, then said, "You don't need to be. You weren't there. But I know the kind of pain that takes from you and never gives back." Their eyes met, 2 strangers, from different stars, connected by grief. When she went to her room that night, she turned before closing the door. "Jaren," she said, "you didn't just save my life. You saved something I thought was dead." He looked confused. "My dignity." Then she smiled, softly, and closed the door. Alone by the fire, Jaren stared into the flames for a long time. The desert outside was cold, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel so empty. A mother's guilt Celery stood in the small kitchen, holding a soft cloth in her hands. She didn't need to clean anything. Jaren kept everything simple and tidy, but she still scrubbed the table, again and again, like she was trying to erase something that lived in her skin. It had been 3 days since the auction, 3 days of safety, food, and silence. Too much silence. Her daughter was gaining strength. The baby smiled now. Laughed even. That sound used to bring Celery joy, but now it made her heart sink. Every giggle reminded her of what she had offered to do, of the moment she had tried to sell her body to a man who hadn't even asked. She hadn't done it out of love. She had done it out of fear, and the shame of that never stopped burning. Jaren entered quietly. He always moved like a shadow, boots soft on the ground, voice quiet but heavy. "You okay?" She turned quickly. "Yes, sorry, yes, I'm fine." He saw the cloth in her hands, the spotless table. "You've cleaned that 3 times today." She looked down. I just needed to keep busy." He didn't say anything, just nodded and walked to the shelf to grab a data drive. But before he left, she blurted out, "Why won't you touch me?" He froze. "I thought that's why you bought me," she whispered. "I was ready. I still am. If that's what you want, just say it." Her voice cracked, her eyes wide and watery. Jaren turned slowly. His face was unreadable. "You think I want that from you? Isn't that why anyone would pay that much?" she asked bitterly. "I'm not special. I was just cheap enough to save. You gave me food, shelter. That means I owe you. You owe me nothing." Her breath caught. "I didn't buy you to own you," he said. "I didn't help you so I could take anything from you." "Then why?" Her voice rose. "Why save someone like me? I was filthy, desperate. I offered myself in front of hundreds of strangers like I was. You were trying to survive," he interrupted, his voice deep and sharp now. "That doesn't make you shameful. That makes you a mother." Silence hung heavy between them. He stepped closer. Slowly. Not to intimidate, but to make sure she didn't back away. "You think I haven't seen what war does to people?" he said. "I've seen soldiers beg on their knees. I've seen parents throw themselves in front of bombs to protect their kids. Survival isn't weakness, Salary. It's the strongest thing a person can do." She shook her head. "But I was ready to give myself away for food." "You weren't giving yourself away," he said softly. "You were fighting the only way you could. That's not guilt. That's courage." She sat down, her knees folding beneath her like her strength had finally run out. "I feel like I'm drowning in shame. Every time I see you, I remember how I offered myself to you, like I had no worth." He crouched beside her, not too close, just enough to meet her eyes. "You didn't offer yourself," he said gently. "You offered your fear. I didn't take it, and I never will." For a long moment she just looked at him, his tired eyes, his quiet strength, the deep sadness behind every calm word. Then she whispered, "Why are you like this?" He smiled a little, but it was sad. "Because once a good woman saved me, and I couldn't save her back." Later that night she stood by the door of his room. He sat inside, fixing a power cell. The light from the lamp cast shadows on his face. "Jaren?" He looked up. "Thank you for not accepting what I offered, and for giving me back something I didn't think I deserved." "What's that?" he asked. She smiled. Not forced, not broken. A real smile. Choice. And then she walked away, her daughter asleep in her arms and her heart finally a little lighter. A man with no past. The wind howled outside the shelter that night. The desert liked to scream when the sun went down, but inside, it was quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that carried memories in its shadows. Salary couldn't sleep. Her baby breathed gently beside her, safe under thick blankets. But her thoughts kept circling back to Jaren. He never asked for anything, never demanded, never even raised his voice. He worked, fixed broken wires, hunted for food, maintained the solar grid. And at night, he stared at the fire like it was speaking to him in a language only he understood. What was he thinking? What was he running from? The next morning she found him outside, sitting on a small crate with an old box in his hands. Metal, rusted, locked tight. He didn't notice her at first, but when she stepped closer, He turned and said, "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep." He nodded. "Same." Her eyes dropped to the box. "What's that?" Jaren stared at it for a long time. Then he unlocked it. Inside were a few strange things. A folded photo. A child's toy, small and scratched. A badge with the Earth Alliance symbol. And a necklace, not made of metal, but a soft blue cloth ribbon tied around a faded stone. "She gave me this," he said, holding up the stone. "Said it was lucky." "Your daughter?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "Lyra, she was 6 when the outpost fell." Salary sat beside him. The sun was rising, painting the dunes gold. "Tell me," she whispered. He looked forward, into the sand, as if the past was hiding in the dunes. "I was stationed at Theta Outpost, peacekeeping unit. Patrols, defense work, nothing serious. We thought the war was dying down. Then they hit us, real fast, real hard, no warning." He swallowed. "My wife had already left me. I had custody of Lyra. She was with me on base. Everyone thought it was safe. But that day the sirens didn't even finish before the walls came down." He paused, holding the photo in his hands, a picture of a laughing girl on his shoulders. "I tried to reach her, fought my way through smoke and debris, found her hiding under a table, crying, scared. I told her to run when I said so. I covered her with my body and fired until I had no rounds left. When they finally pulled me from the rubble, she was gone. Gone." The word hit Salary like a knife. "She wasn't killed," he added, voice low. "She was taken by slavers, traitors, monsters. I never found out which. I searched every black market station for years, paid people, threatened people, but nothing, just dust." Salary reached out. Her hand brushed his. Just a moment. A quiet gesture. "I'm sorry." He looked at her, and something broke in his expression. He wasn't the soldier now. He was a man who had been left in a burning building after everyone else escaped. "I think when I saw you standing on that auction stage, and it was like looking at what could have been." Salary's throat tightened. "You thought I was her?" "I knew you weren't, but I couldn't watch it happen again." That evening, she cooked for the first time. Nothing fancy, just roasted root vegetables with powdered herbs and desert grains. But Jaren smiled when he tasted it, a small smile, rare and real. "This tastes like something," he said. "It tastes like home," she replied. And then they laughed, just once. Later that night, she brought the ribbon back to him, the one from the stone. "I sewed a small pouch on your coat," she said, a little shy, "to carry this, close to your heart." He touched the cloth, surprised. "Thank you." Then she added, almost in a whisper, "If you ever stop wearing it, I'll sew it into your skin." He blinked, and then chuckled. "That's the first threat I've gotten in months." She grinned. "Good. Means you're not a stranger anymore." And just for a second, in the flickering firelight, surrounded by the silence of a dead planet, it didn't feel like a ruin anymore. It felt like the beginning of something neither of them dared to name. Not yet. The ones who want her back. The sun hadn't even touched the sky yet when Salary heard something strange. Not the wind, not the cries of desert birds. Something deeper, a low, distant hum, mechanical, hungry. She stepped out of the shelter, her baby clutched to her chest. The desert stretched silent, empty. But her instincts, sharp from too many years of fear, told her one thing. They had found her. Jaren was already on the roof, scanning the horizon with old binoculars. She climbed up beside him. Her voice trembled. "Is it them?" He didn't answer right away, but the line in his jaw, the way his hand slid slowly to the rifle strapped to his back, gave her the truth. 3 black vehicles were crawling through. The sand in the distance, silent, sharp-edged, like insects that had tasted blood before and were hungry again. "Slaver units. They move like syndicate trackers," he muttered. "Tuned engines, long-range sensors. They're not just passing by." Salary felt sick. They know I'm here. Or they know someone escaped the auction. Jaren jumped off the roof. Calm, but faster now. Focused. Ready. He loaded weapons. Checked backup power cells. Slammed drawers shut. No panic, just motion. Salary followed, holding her baby tighter than ever. What do we do? She asked. Jaren looked her in the eyes. We protect her. Not you. Not us. Her. That single word hit her harder than any threat ever had. By midday, the vehicles were closer. Salary stood near the window, watching the horizon shake. Memories crashed into her. Shackles, hunger, being dragged across space stations, shouted at in languages she didn't understand. The baby clung to her scarf. Salary turned to Jaren. I won't go back. Not alive. You won't, he said, voice like steel. Not while I breathe. They set up traps. Jaren showed her how to rig the side vents with flash explosives. She listened carefully, learned fast. She was afraid, but not helpless anymore. She carried her daughter on her back as she laid sharp metal scrap near the shelter's edge. Her hands bled, but she didn't stop. They want to take everything from me, she whispered. They always do. Not this time, Jaren said. He paused, then added something softer. Not while I'm here. The syndicate vehicles stopped just a few hundred meters away as the sun dipped low. 3 figures stepped out, tall, armored, faces covered by black visors. One held a data pad. The second held a chain. The third held a shock baton. The lead, one stepped forward, voice robotic through a speaker. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Jaren stepped out of the doorway, gun aimed. His body blocked the entrance completely. Walk away. The slaver tilted his head. You paid for her? Then you know the contract. Property taken from syndicate control without clearance is null. Surrender the asset. She's not property, Jaren said. She's a product. The child, too. Then Jaren said something Salary had never heard in his voice before. Rage. Try and take them. I'll show you what a real product of war looks like. The air was silent for a moment. Then gunfire cracked through the sky. The first trap exploded, a blast of white flash that blinded one of the slavers. The second stepped on a spike and fell screaming. The third rushed forward and met Jaren's rifle head-on. He moved like he had trained for years. No wasted shots, no hesitation, but they were fast too. One blast clipped his shoulder. Another grazed his leg. Salary screamed. She laid her baby in a crate behind a shield and grabbed a small shock stick from the gear room. I won't hide, she told herself. Not again. The last slaver kicked open the side door. He raised his baton, but Salary was waiting. She drove the shock stick into his ribs and screamed as electricity surged. He fell back, convulsing. Jaren limped in seconds later, blood running down his arm. He saw her standing over the body. She was breathing hard, eyes wild, but she didn't look afraid. She looked free. Later that night, the fire burned low. Jaren sat, his shirt wrapped tight over his bleeding arm. Salary cleaned the wound gently. No words, just quiet movements. Careful hands. I thought I lost you, she said finally. I'm hard to kill. He smiled weakly. She didn't laugh. She leaned closer. You didn't buy me, Jaren. You saved me. Again. He looked at her. Something in his eyes, broken and whole at the same time. And then she kissed him, not with fear, not with payment, but with choice. Fire under the stars. The fire crackled softly as night covered the desert like a dark, heavy blanket. Above them, the stars stretched wide and endless, silent witnesses to 2 wounded souls sitting close but not yet touching. Salary sat across from Jaren, their backs against the same rock wall, but a few inches of dust and silence still between them. Her baby was asleep inside the shelter, wrapped in warmth and peace. For the first time in days, Salary wasn't afraid of the dark, and for the first time in years, Jaren wasn't alone. Your wound is healing well, she said softly, brushing dust from her dress. You should have let me fight beside you earlier. You did, Jaren replied. You saved my life. She smiled, but it faded just as quickly. I'm not used to that. Being trusted. He poked the fire with a stick. You're easy to trust. You're loyal, brave, smarter than most people I've met. She raised an eyebrow. You've known me a week. Sometimes a week tells you more than a lifetime. His voice was quiet, too quiet. Salary turned her head toward him, watching the firelight dance across his jaw, his scar, his tired eyes. Why do you do that? Do what? Say deep things and then act like they mean nothing. He smirked faintly. Because I don't know what to do when they mean everything. Her breath caught. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she stood and walked away. He didn't call after her, but a minute later she returned with a blanket and a small bottle of preserved alien flowers. Pink and glowing faintly in the dark. These grew on my home planet, she said, kneeling beside him. I kept them hidden even when I was starving. I was saving them for something that mattered. She placed the bottle gently beside him. I think this is that moment. Jaren looked at her. Salary, you don't owe me. This isn't about owing, she interrupted. It's about being seen, being free, being safe. She sat beside him, close now, the blanket over both their shoulders. Her arm brushed his. He didn't move away. You know, she said, staring at the stars. My people used to believe that when you stared at the night sky beside someone and said nothing, that silence was a conversation only souls understood. Jaren exhaled slowly. Then I think mine's been screaming for years. She looked at him. He looked back, and in that moment, they both knew. This was no longer survival. This was the start of something real. He reached for her hand. She let him. His grip was gentle, unsure. I thought I'd forgotten how to feel, he said. Then you happened. Sayori leaned her head against his shoulder. And I thought I'd never feel safe in someone's arms again, she whispered. Then you happened. The fire glowed. The stars listened. Two survivors of two different wars healing one heartbeat at a time. Later that night, as they lay beneath the stars, not in a bed but on a blanket under open sky, Jaren told her a story. Not about war, not about pain, but about something small. How his daughter once baked a terrible cake with too much salt and made him eat every bite. Salary laughed, really laughed. And Jaren just stared at her like she was the first light he'd seen after years in the dark, and when she fell asleep beside him, her head resting against his chest, he whispered into her hair, You saved me too, Salary. I just didn't know it until now. Inside the shelter, the baby stirred and reached toward the door in her sleep. Outside, her mother and the man who had bought her freedom slept beneath the stars. And for the first time in their shattered lives, there was no war, no fear, only the quiet promise of something worth living for. She was never for sale. The morning light was soft, too soft for what was coming. Jaren stood outside the shelter, rifle in hand. He hadn't slept, not after what he heard crackle through the stolen comms unit late last night. A final message from the syndicate. She is marked. She and the child are property. Return them or we burn the land around you. Salary didn't know he had heard it. He kept the message hidden. He didn't want her to worry, not on the last day of her old life. Inside, Salary gently dressed her daughter. The child laughed, pulling at her scarf, glowing with new strength. It made her heart ache, in a good way. She caught herself in the mirror, no longer thin and hollow-eyed, no longer a shadow, a mother again, a woman again, a soul again. She stepped out and saw Jaren cleaning his rifle for the third time. You're tense, she said. They won't stop, Salary. She already knew. By mid-afternoon, a low rumble trembled through the ground. Dust clouds rose in the distance, but this time Jaren didn't prepare to run. He didn't build traps. He stood tall, calm. Salary came beside him, holding her daughter, not behind him, beside him. They'll try to take us, she said. Let them try, he replied, then looked at her. But this time they won't just be facing me. She smiled, calm, unafraid. No, this time, they're facing us. 3 syndicate enforcers stepped out of sleek, dark ships. Their faces were cold, pale with armor, scanners glowing red. One of them held a branding device. Another one, a cage. The lead one sneered. You had your moment, hand them over. Jaren raised his rifle, slow and steady. She was never yours. She sold herself. She survived. She has no legal claim to her name, or the child's. She has me. A beat of silence. Then the lead one said the last mistake he'd ever say. You humans always let emotion make you weak. Salary stepped forward, her eyes glowing with rage and purpose. No, love makes us dangerous. It wasn't even a fair fight. Jaren had planned for this day, and this time Salary fought too. She used everything he had, taught her, strike fast, move quicker, protect the child first, shoot second. The moment one slaver reached for her daughter, her hands found the old shock baton and she dropped him where he stood. Jaren moved like lightning, rage, memory, and love fueling every shot. It was over in 4 minutes. When the smoke cleared, the syndicate's mark burned in the sand, and the woman they once branded property and they stood above them like a queen reborn. Later that evening, Salary sat beside Jaren at the fire. He winced, pressing gauze to a burn on his arm. She gently took over. You always bleed on the side you sleep on, she teased. You always fight harder than you should. She smiled. Only for things worth bleeding for. The baby crawled into Jaren's lap and stared up at him. Big, eyes curious, familiar. Salary watched them quietly, then said something she had never said before. I want her to grow up calling you father. Jaren didn't move, didn't blink. Then he whispered, I already do. Weeks passed. The desert, still stretched wide and lonely, but it no longer felt lifeless. Together they rebuilt the shelter, planted small crops, raised solar panels, built a crib, and on one clear night under 1,000 silent stars, Jaren handed Salary a tiny ring made from the stone she once gave him, the glowing flower still wrapped inside. I didn't buy you, he said. I found you? She took the ring and smiled. You didn't find me, Jaren. We found each other. And that's how it ends. A woman who thought she had to sell herself to live. And a man who thought nothing could be worth saving anymore. Both found the one thing they'd lost in the ruins of war. A reason to stay. A reason to love. And a life no one could ever put a price on.